What's up, SVSers? Welcome back to another SVS Audiophile happy hour. Gary's texting me, hopefully. I don't know.
I'm just getting your text.
Okay. There. That's good. Welcome, everybody, again. We have a very, very exciting evening. But before we get into some of what we're going to be discussing and who we're going to be discussing it with, Gary, how's it going? How you been for the last 2 weeks?
You know, this has been the best couple of weeks I've had in a year, essentially. I mean, it's really feeling like we're moving into some degree of normalcy. We had Father's Day. That was fun. I was the center of attention. I like that. And we're in a great place. And it also reinforces my feeling that we got to keep doing these, because I still miss the SVS community. I start jonesing for doing this show and hanging out with our community. So really happy to see everyone, and thanks to everybody for joining us tonight.
Wonderful. And Larry, I know you've been busy behind the grill. What's up with you? Anything new?
Well, I've gotten out and done some stuff in person with some stores locally here in Dallas. So I've been hanging out with some of our local retailers, which is cool, and traveling next week. But as Gary said, the weekend was Father's Day, and I think I did 3 or 4 or 5 straight days of grilling and smoking. So I've got lots of pork and chicken.
What were you smoking?
Burgers.
No, I don't want to get him started on this.
Well, I did 2 pork loins one day, a 10-pound pork butt another. Did 8 pounds of wings last night. Chicken breasts. So yeah, we're stoked.
Always plenty of meat at the Magoo household, that is for sure. Well, yes. For anyone who is joining us for the very first time on the SVS Audiophile Happy Hour, we have certain things that we do every week. One of them is fantastic giveaways, and Larry will get to those in a minute. But all you have to do to be eligible is leave a comment, and we have our colleague there, Vince, working behind the scenes. He's drawing people at random. I will read your name out loud, and then if we have your contact information, we'll reach out. Otherwise, reach out to us, and we will make sure we get it shipped right away. And we have 4 wonderful prizes tonight, Larry. And what are those prizes?
So the 4, and I guess the order we're giving away, we've got a pair of Prime wireless powered speakers we're going to give away, a pair of Prime elevation speakers, an SB1000 Pro Series subwoofer, and a PB1000 Pro Series subwoofer. So we got 4 great giveaways once more.
So leave your comments, listen for your name, and you will be eligible. And we also have a very, very special guest, and somebody that actually I have a personal connection to from way back. He's the very first audio press person that I ever met back at the CDA trade show. Gosh, I think it was 15, 16 years ago. His name is Steve Guttenberg. He runs a very popular YouTube channel now called the Audiophiliac. So if you're not following him, you should do it just to learn about new music. But he also gives great reviews, talks about all sorts of cool hi-fi and audio-related topics. So check out the Audiophiliac, and we are having a great conversation with him today. So looking forward to that.
I'm also really excited about having Steve on the show. I think he is one of the best, if not the absolute best audio reviewer out there. I just absolutely enjoy his reviews and tend to agree with a lot of his perspectives. So, and he says he's going to grill us a little bit. So we're going to brace ourselves, because he really has a lot of deep knowledge of what we all do.
Yeah, and he's made the transition from being, a stereophile columnist and writing for CNET to being this YouTube personality. And there's not many people who have done that transition. So I think he's got a lot of interesting perspective, sort of from the old world that he came from, and now the sort of modern way of people talking and discussing audio-related topics. So excited to get to him. But we have to stick with tradition, as we always do, and go around and give some recommendations. And I know I have a couple. But Larry, I'll let you go first. What have you been tuning into recently, and is there anything interesting in your glass tonight?
So, yeah, and I just spilled some on me. I just have a huge glass of water. So we almost had a blooper because my coaster stuck to the can everywhere. So my chair is soaking wet. But I started In the Heights and haven't finished it yet. But I've been enjoying that one so far. The NBA playoffs have just been phenomenal, outside of the fact that the Mavericks lost. And I picked up some new content for us to do at shows coming up in the fall. So I got the Wonder Woman 84 disc, Godzilla vs. Kong, Mulan, and Monster Hunter, which I'm not sure if it's any good or not, but it could be. Who knows?
So if you're coming to Expono or Rocky Mountain Audio Fest, then you might hear us do a live demo from one of those Blu-rays, if I'm not mistaken there.
Yes, sir.
And Gary, what have you been tuning into recently?
Well, first of all, I had a phenomenal trip to Reno, where I hung out with Reno, Nevada. I guess everybody knows that. Where I hung out with Smith and Mitch Whitten, who both live there, and we set up demos at Smith's house. And I won't tell you what we're demoing, but it was so much fun. And I picked some of the demo material that we find the most difficult. So I'll tell you some of what we were listening to from an audio space. Bob Dylan, Oh Mercy. Miranda Lambert, For the Record. The Bach cello suites, Heinrich Schiff, and trying to think what else. Oh, and Miles Davis, Someday My Prince Will Come. These are all things we always come back to as we're voicing speakers. There's about 20 other bits of content, 2-channel content that we use. I just thought I would throw that out there. It was so much fun spending an entire day with people who are just as passionate about great sound as I am, and just talking about what we were hearing and trying to make it the best we can, and it was fun. And I will say, a lot of CEOs and speaker brands don't do that. They don't sit and listen to speakers and voice them, and it's a privilege. And I'm really excited about what we're working on.
I'm a little surprised
from a home.
those. Usually,
we're always working on something.
I know, always working on something. Tracks, you know that. Reference tracks are sort of a closely guarded secret that we've. I
didn't say which exact tracks from those, did I?
Okay,
that's a fair point. Kept it a little bit under.
No,
I didn't.
We've talked about
tracks.
them before. Yeah.
Yeah, we've used them. It's not that much of a secret.
We don't let them all out.
And then the from a home theater place, I just have to say again how much I'm enjoying that Formula One Drive to Survive. We have promised ourselves that we're not going to watch it on my wife and I, Sylvia, we're not going to watch it on our phones. We're only going to, when we're both home at night, watch it in a full-on theater. It's just thrilling. And I totally recommend it. Other than that, probably not as much home theater. I mean, I'm feeling like I've been more of a 2-channel guy the last couple of weeks.
Fair. I mean, it's a nice time to be listening to music and, sort of milling around the house. And I have been checking out some content. The NBA playoffs, I agree with you, Larry. The underdog teams and the way that some of these games have finished have been phenomenal. So I've been into that. You mean
it's not going to be a coronation of the 76ers and the Nets this year? I thought that was just details.
No, and I think there's this sentiment that there's no big market team, so no one's going to watch. I've been glued. I love watching the Hawks and, the Bucks and these teams that don't always get the headlines, and it's just been a lot of fun. So as long as these games stay close, I'll keep watching. I don't want to see any sweeps. I think that's what
Phoenix been a huge surprise.
And Phoenix,
I'm also, if we're going to talk sports, I am also dumbfounded that the Nationals, who have been playing, they're still under 500. They're in second place in their division now. And very if you can, you should YouTube it, SVS community. If you didn't hear this story of the Phillies manager challenging Max Scherzer on his sticky stuff that he's supposedly using, challenged him over and over again during the game. It's very entertaining. So
3 times.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I also binge watched this series called Sweet Tooth, which is sort of a weird, hybrid human. It's really odd, but I enjoyed it. It was something my wife and I could watch with our teenagers, so that was fun. And then I've been reading a lot more, and I just so happened to be reading the latest issue of Sound and Vision.
Look at that! Who's that on the cover? Is that your picture, Nick?
Yeah, can you imagine that? So really trying to catch up on.
Did you notice if you're showing things, show the? I don't know if I've ever seen them give 5 stars in every single one of their categories.
Well,
they literally. If I recall, they literally gave us 5 stars across the board on both subwoofers. That's our 1000 Pro review in Sound and Vision. I'm very proud of that.
Yep, a lot of fun there. And then one thing I did want to call out too, there was a great article that was on Rotten Tomatoes that was 10 of this editor's favorite music documentaries. So I would check that out too. There's one from David Bowie. There's a couple other ones. So if you're a music buff and you love documentaries, there's some great suggestions there. So I would highly recommend them. I haven't seen them all, but definitely worth checking out.
You didn't share that with me. That's Edgar Wright. He did Baby Driver and Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. He's one of my favorite directors, dude.
Well then, there you go.
I'd like to see that. You should shoot me that link. I'll watch that.
I will. Well, there's 10 of them, but I'm going to put it in the comments here too, so it's a live link for you people that are watching. Give me 1 second here, and then
wait about 55 minutes to go check it out.
Yeah, exactly. All right, there you go. So it's in the comments. All right, so a couple of quick announcements I wanted to make. Larry and I are actually going to be live streaming. If you don't get enough of us here, we're doing something called the Hi-Fi Summit on Monday. Shout out to Joe Intel, Youthman, and Technodad, 3 of the YouTube guys who have put together this virtual summit when the pandemic was sort of raging on. It was a great way to kind of keep the community alive. So we're happy to support it. We're doing a giveaway of a 2.1 system as part of that as well. So join us. You can ask us questions and grill us and make fun of us, whatever you want to do. It's just a lot of fun. So check out the Hi-Fi Summit. We'll be on next Monday, June 28th at 1 p.m. So go to hifiSummit.com to find out the rest of the details.
Eastern time.
Eastern time, that's right. And Gary, I'm going to surprise you on this one. We did have a couple people comment actually on the last broadcast that we had. We were talking about recommending subwoofers, and it came up that we never talk about our subwoofer matching tool. And we were actually talking about it as a team today. I don't want to promote it overly, but I wanted you to kind of give some insight on why we designed it and what it's for, but what it's also not for. What was the purpose of us creating that tool for folks on our website?
Well, I think people want to use, they want to independently try to conduct their journey to what is the perfect product for them. And I could easily have we talked about this. We could have tasked the team to say, what system, what are the ancillary gear that they're using, particularly the speakers with the subwoofer, what's the size of the room, these different things. But the truth is that the most important things about a person's choice for a subwoofer are more related to their own priorities, what they're trying to accomplish, what their tolerance for size is. Sometimes people really are turned on by a huge subwoofer, other situations where in a smaller room they just don't have that choice. And then the other piece of it is, and I think critical piece of it, people do not know how to set crossovers for their speakers. And in a particular, obviously in a home theater scenario, you have this digital bass management that the receiver uses, so you don't have to worry about it too much. But in a 2-channel scenario, you have to set the crossover, and we tell you with thousands of specific speaker models what our recommended crossover point and slope is for that speaker, so that your likelihood of it sounding good out of the box essentially is very high. If you want to mess around with it and do a lot of different things, you totally can. Now all of our models use the fully digitally adjustable smartphone subwoofer control app. But if not, you can set the crossover point and slope that we recommend, and more than likely it's going to sound really good. So that's really the primary function. Does it tell you exactly what to get? Definitely not. Does it give you a great start on what to choose for your speakers? Yes. And I would also say that our what we call our sound experts, our customer service team, these people are just as passionate about great sound as any of us are on this show, and they're standing by 7 days a week to help you figure it out, help you figure out what's the best choice for you, and also how to set it up. So I guess, does that answer the question, Nick?
Yeah, I think I wanted to, just basically get people an understanding of what it's for. And, it's not the end all be all, but certainly it helps you get on the right path. And the tuning aspect, I think, is an important, thing to mention as well. So if you want to check it out, it's on our site. You can just look for it on the search, Subwoofer Matching Tool, and check it out. And let us know what you think. And if you want to yell at us and tell us it needs to be fixed, then we'll fix it and update it as needed. So we did a fun couple social posts earlier last week where we had asked our Facebook and Instagram community to share the funniest complaints they had ever gotten from playing their systems too loud. So I compiled a few of them. There were some that were maybe a little too PG-13 to be discussed on air here. But I tried to pick some fun ones that we'll quickly run through because I know people are eager to hear from Steve and eager to get to that first giveaway. So without further ado, here are some of the best complaints that people have had from playing their system too loud. You bought this instead of a ring? Ooh, sorry, Jack. This is a rough one. The toilet seat is literally shaking. And funny story, Larry actually knocked all of his wife's makeup into the toilet one time from playing a little too loud. So
yeah, 16 Ultra in the house and Deepwater Horizon. And I learned my lesson. The isolation system was sitting on my coffee table because it was the day I brought the SB16 into the house. So fun 2 hours of shaking and
There you go. And we encourage people to add your own funny complaints that you've gotten in the comments if you have any. My mother, who lives in the house opposite mine, 30 meters away, it shakes my bed. It makes my bed tremble. Some of these get a little long. Cops at the door the day after a party giving me a nuisance partying ticket because I didn't answer the door when they were there the first night. Well, sir, clearly it was too loud. Was that an earthquake? No, just my SVS sub. I scared cats 2 rooms over with the house shaking from the weekend. The kitty was crying in a ball. That one's kind of sad. But cats actually love bass.
But the weekend has a lot of sad songs. It might have been more of an emotional reaction.
That's a good point. I didn't think of it that way. And I've seen a lot of cats, snuggled up on their owner's subwoofers too. So I don't think that's a rule there. Please turn it down. It's hard to breathe. I think that's like the pressurization of the room. He must be running some serious ampage in that room, I would think. My wife normally doesn't care if I crank up some tunes, so when the sound was rippling the water in our aquarium, she strongly suggested that I turn it down. Clearly, they didn't have any...
it sounds like a fish story to me.
Yeah, they didn't have any bass in the aquarium.
Yeah, it's a little fishy, right?
Yeah. Sir, this is a hospital. I think I have more questions after that one.
That's more questions than answers on that one.
The police are coming, and they're not looking for Roxanne. And then here's one that maybe takes a positive twist. Police came because of a report of an explosion that shook the whole ground in bed of a neighbor. When I opened the door, they asked for a demo. Both were speechless. SBS for the win. So there you go.
That one actually is my favorite one. That's actually they're investigating some kind of incendiary device.
And they see a system, and now they want to own one. And I'll end on a positive note too. My wife told me the house was vibrating. She was mad until she sat down. The seats vibrated at all the climactic scenes. Now she never complains because it makes it feel like she's in the movie. So we're very much about inviting people to the experience and getting them to embrace it. I think that's what that's all about there. So check out the social posts we made. There's a lot more in there that I couldn't mention live on air. We are a family broadcast here, so
very cute.
Get some laughs out of those. So now that we
should we do our first giveaway before we
bring out our special guest here. Our very first giveaway is a Prime wireless powered speaker system. The winner of that is Jeffrey Hill. Jeffrey Hill, congratulations. Vince is
Yay, Jeffrey.
We're going to get your Prime wireless system out. So I had mentioned at the top, we have a very special and awesome guest, somebody who I've known for a while now, one of the first press people I ever met from the audio industry. His name is Steve Guttenberg. He has written for CNET, for Interfidelity, Stereophile. You've sold hi-fi at Sounds by Singer, one of the iconic stereo shops within the New York area. And you were also an ex-cinema movie projectionist, which I know was one of your first sort of gigs to bring you into sort of this hobby. And now you run one of the most popular and I think awesome just YouTube channels just devoted to all things hi-fi and audio. Welcome, Steve Guttenberg, the Audiophiliac. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. And I have to start off, as we always do, and ask, what are you drinking? And can you give the good folks any recommendations for music or other things they should be tuning into?
You know, New York City's water is very famous.
Yeah, very good.
It's better than most bottled water.
I've heard.
You want music?
They say that's why New York pizzas and bagels are totally different than anywhere else in the world because of the water.
Yeah, really good water. I'm not joking.
No, it's true.
I was preparing some recommendations. So there was this movie, you know, when I watched the Academy Awards, because I was a projectionist for so long, I do have this interest in movies, but, you know, a lot of things that win Academy Awards are not movies. They're not Steve movies. You know, I tend to like movies that other people don't like. It just kind of works out that way. So when a movie wins an award, it's always a big surprise to me because I have the taste don't run popular. So it almost never works out that the movie that I like wins best movie or best director, but this movie did.
I love that movie.
Birdman.
I love that movie.
Right?
It's a very strange movie, but I loved it.
Well, I like it. And the thing is, the score of this movie is basically a solo drummer, essentially. And his name is Antonio Sanchez. And you briefly see him playing the drums in the movie. But the idea of having a drummer who's sort of punctuating and giving rhythm to the action in the movie is such an incredible idea and so brave. I mean, the whole movie is brave. The whole movie, without going into the details of the plot, the idea of the movie is that there's no obvious edits in the film. It basically looks like it all happens in real time. It's about a guy who used to be like a superhero and he wants to be taken seriously, so he has a legitimate Broadway theater show. And his character, when he was a superhero, was called Birdman, which is why it's called Birdman. But the fact that the whole movie takes place essentially in real time adds this tension, and then to have a drummer provide the pulse of the movie is incredible.
I feel like I have to watch this tonight after this description.
Yeah, now you might hate the movie.
If you told me there's this movie where it's basically a single shot all the way through the movie and the soundtrack is drums, I would be like, I'm going to be bored, at least at times, but it keeps your attention the whole way.
Yeah.
It's really, I absolutely adore that movie.
Yeah, and it brought the one shot back to cinema.
Is it in a good sound format, Steve? I just don't remember.
Well, it's not in Atmos. I don't remember what the format is. It's a good sounding film. It is. It's when I say good sound, I don't mean in the Atmos sense. I mean good sounding in that it sounds real, like you are there. That's what I mean by good sound. It's not a Hollywood kind of sound.
I think I have that disc. I'm gonna watch it. Now you've got me inspired as well.
Yeah.
Watch it again.
And what makes it adds to the level of it is that Michael Keaton, aka Batman, is playing a guy who was a superhero. So it's meta, as they say.
Very much so.
I like that.
So,
well, this actually leads to an interesting question, I think, because so many of your reviews are studded with content and recommendations for sometimes obscure, sometimes very well-known music. But what tips do you have for people, that you can offer that can help you discover new music? What's your process?
Watch my reviews.
Oh, really?
There's a plug. Yeah.
See, I would do all obscure music, but that would be. Someone actually commented that I'm too elitist by always talking about obscure music, which isn't true. I purposely put in music that isn't obscure because I don't want to be seen as elitist. But left to my own devices, it would only be obscure music because I do like the idea of turning people on to. Why talk about music that people already know? But there is a thing about using music or movies that people already know because it's a reference that they can connect to. That's the good part about using music that people already know. But still, by the way, I do have one other CD to talk about, which some people know. And this artist is Robin Hitchcock, this guy. And he's an English singer-songwriter. And this is from 2004. And guesting on this record, or actually on almost the entire record, is Gillian anyway,
we'll go with
Gillian Welch and her partner David Rawlings. And it's mostly acoustic record, and it's a gorgeous recording. And the vocals and the acoustic instruments sound so good, and they are mic'd so well. It's not an audiophile recording, but to me, and we can talk about audiophile recordings and what that means to me later, but it's a gorgeous recording, and it's just amazing. And the music is really, really good. Robin Hitchcock is just such an interesting performer because he's so he has a sense of humor. He's ironic. He's just very British in his humor. Very.
I wouldn't call that obscure. I would just say that you're shining a light on something that maybe we hadn't thought of in a while.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not just saying these things because I like them. I'm trying
to
bring.
You had one you talked about, which I had completely forgotten about, and I have a feeling it's out of print, but it absolutely impacted me when you reviewed our speakers. It was this Philip Glass movie, Koyaanisqatsi.
Right.
And I remember how it impacted me when it came out, and I don't even know if you can even get it anymore.
I think you can stream it. Yeah. Oh, you mean the movie? Yeah.
The movie, the actual movie. But I just thought, what an interesting thing to bring up, and it was something that had really impacted me when it first came out. I didn't do it because it's just been busy, but I'm going to find it again now.
Right. Well, I should then explain what the movie is. So it's a documentary film, and it has no people. Well, it has no actors in it. It has no dialogue. It's just the movie. The name Koyaanisqatsi is an Indian word for a life out of balance, and it's basically aerial views of the Earth, basically man's destruction of Earth. And you just see it in close-ups, you see it in distance, you just see it in various ways. And it's gorgeous photography and Philip Glass's music, which I don't always like, but it works so perfectly in this context.
Mm-hmm.
When the movie had just come out, or actually maybe 3 or 4 months after it had just come out, they did it live in New York at Lincoln Center with they showed the movie with a live orchestra with Philip Glass, putting on this show with his score live with the movie, which was extra cool.
And were you there? You saw it?
Yeah, I was there.
Really cool.
Yeah.
So a lot of your reviews are really heavily sort of influenced by the content you're listening to, and I'm just curious, like, what is your approach going into a review? Do you have songs and movies in mind that you want to review, or is it sort of evolve as you sort of start testing the product? I'm just curious where the mindset of choosing obscure versus mainstream and that whole situation.
It just happens as it happens. There's no roadmap, I mean, people seem to think that there's like a way of doing a review, and the thing is, it would be so boring to do it that way. I mean, I do sprinkle in a lot of music that I know really well, but I rarely refer to it because then I think it gets boring, in this case for the viewer, for me to say the same thing over and over again. So I don't usually talk about those. I talk about these other things because I'm trying to make the review interesting, not just as a review of a product, but also about music. Because as they love to say, as audiophiles love to say, it's about the music, man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do they mean it though? Do audiophiles really mean that when they say that?
No, they don't mean it. No. You'll notice that in audio magazines, the music is always in the back. Some issues, they just leave it out entirely because most audiophiles don't read the music reviews. And I know that because I've been doing this a really long time, written for magazines. And the thing is, especially nowadays, for people that are into music, they don't go to audio magazines to read or discover music. They go to music sites. You don't go to audio magazines to find out about music. You go to where you go to Pitchfork or something to find music, not audio magazines. So it's a total waste of time to do it that way. So, but my thing is that while I'm here, so to speak, doing a review, I might as well give it my shot at trying to turn people on to music. And I think since it's sort of become part of the ritual, or whatever word you want to use, of my reviews, and people seem to like it, because I used to do separate music reviews that almost nobody watched. I realized, because they're not into the music reviews, that I thought I'll just sprinkle the music reviews into the equipment reviews. It's kind of like disguising the medicine or something. And then that way I can kill 2 birds with one stone.
So I do want to ask you to that point, because most of the time when you're referencing music, you're actually referencing music that you value as music. So
absolutely,
where do you stand on these quote unquote audiophile recordings? Sometimes not the best performances, but really well mic'd or mastered or whatever. What's your take?
First of all, I'm offended by the question.
Why?
Because that is such a cliche. First of all, you realize that I worked. Why am I doing air quotes? I actually did work for an audiophile label, Chesky. I actually did work for an audiophile label for practically 10 years. So when they say that, that means it's not real music, or it's not authentic music, or it's just music that's pretty. It's all about the group. Obviously, there are recordings that are done that way, but the thing is, how should I answer that question?
And remember, I didn't have any agenda with that question. Maybe it sounds like I did.
I'm joking when I said I'm offended, but I'm not. You really can't offend me. I've been through too many things in my life to be offended by practically anything. Audiophile recordings, as I view them, are recordings that are made to make it sound like, it doesn't have to literally be true, but if it is true, it's even better. Recordings that capture people playing together live in a room, that are really trying to capture that sound. Now, of course, if you go back far enough in time, all recordings were made of people playing together in a room. But starting with multi-track and studios and the Beatles, et cetera, and even Glenn Gould, he wanted to slice and dice his recordings so that there was no performance left in Glenn Gould recordings. There was nothing there to get. You never heard what the band, the Glenn Gould band, there was no there with him. So.
And do you have a problem with that?
I do, yeah, because the audiophiles, I'm doing air quotes again. Why should I do that? The audiophiles have that thing. I want to hear what the band heard. The idea of hearing a mix or hearing it, mastered and all that stuff. I want to hear what the band heard. Well, you can't hear what the band heard. The band didn't want you to hear what they heard. If they wanted you to hear what they heard, they wouldn't edit their recordings and they wouldn't master them. All those things change the sound from what it was when they played the music, assuming they actually were all there playing the music, assuming they did live vocals when they played the instruments, which almost never happens. I mean, it happens with jazz, it happens with classical music, but with pop, rock, and all that stuff, almost never. The Beatles didn't even do live vocals, right? So, this has been going on a long time. So this fantasy of hearing the thing, what the band played or the thing, is almost never real, depending on the genre of music. So at least with an audiophile recording, getting back to the question, it either did happen that the entire band and the singers played live, and that's what the recording captured, or it gets close enough to that to make it believable.
So I want to shift gears a little bit here, and something.
Wait, I got a very important question.
Well, you're on the clock, man. Your turn.
So Gary, where did this obsession with bass come from? Does it come from the heartbeat of your mother?
So now I'm offended. No, you're going to have a tough time with it. No, first of all, when I bought SVS with two partners, almost 10 years to the day now, a little bit longer than 10 years ago.
That's it? 10 years? I thought it's like 20. Okay.
No. 10 years. It was just it was a tiny little internet direct subwoofer company. We didn't have speakers. And so, and frankly, the subwoofer, there was a commitment to excellence in those subwoofers. It was definitely something to build on. In other words, there's no way I would ever repudiate that. That's such a special part of what we inherited with SVS. We had this almost cultish following of our subwoofers and our commitment to excellence in that. And what does a subwoofer do? Well, subwoofers get a bad rap because they sometimes do more harm than good. They can't keep up with the speakers, and so they muddy the sound and they make it less. You're talking about what's real and what's not real. They make it sound like it's not real. It's not coming from a real place. And so we committed to ourselves that we were going to make subwoofers that never or as little as possible detracted from the sound. And now all of a sudden we're adding this dimension to it, which you did a great job talking when you were, this is not about you liking or not liking our stuff, but talking about what a great subwoofer, when it's correctly set up and matched well with the speakers, what it does. It basically adds a different dimension to the experience. It completes it. It brings things there that are there, but you can't hear them with a passive full range speaker. Even some very capable and expensive passive full range speakers don't always tell the entire story. I had a pair of $24,000 towers, I won't name names, that I was evaluating and learning about. And I was dumbfounded at how badly they needed a subwoofer to complete the picture. But really, what we've always been about, Steve, is a commitment. We're passionate about great sound. We brought in a lot of really important speaker designers very early on. And one mistake we didn't make was to say, well, we're so smart about subwoofers, we can just use our subwoofer designers to create speakers. Instead, we brought people that had expertise in full range speakers. And I'd like to think that we, although we built from a subwoofer place, we're not just about subwoofers anymore. The speakers are actually growing faster than subwoofers in our
You
world.
did make active speakers. Congratulations.
Now we do. Now we do.
Because I love active speakers. It's one of my favorite categories. Okay.
Yeah. I would love to sneak in a giveaway here if that's cool. I know we want to keep with the rhythm.
You mean I get something now? Finally.
Blue M&Ms.
Say the word.
Blue M&Ms.
You win an SVS coaster. No. So the next prize we're giving away is our Prime Elevation speakers. And the winner of a pair of Prime Elevation speakers is Steve Moran. Steve Moran, congratulations. We're going to reach out, get your info, but you got some Prime Elevations coming your way. So, Steve, I know you've been on both sides of a lot of conversations, and you ask some provocative questions, on your channel. I like to use that word, so that's why I'm using it. But also, even things like, how much do cables really matter? The whole point of why I'm mentioning this is, why do you think hi-fi and high performance audio causes such emotional or sort of visceral reactions and arguments among some people? Like, what is it about it?
Why is it divisive? It's a great question.
Why does it stoke such divisiveness? Having seen what you've seen over the years and heard what you've heard.
That's a fantastic question. It's one that
it's about the fun, right?
I don't have a snappy answer. Because the thing, let me put it to you this way. Maybe 10 years ago, I was looking. So there's this section of the New York Times called the Style section. And it comes out, I don't know, 6 times a year or something. It's an insert into the Sunday Times. It's a thick, glossy magazine. And sometimes it's for women's fashion and sometimes it's architecture. Anyway, I'm looking through the women's fashion one. And you open the pages and you'll see like a woman's pocketbook and it's $10,000. And then there's, a belt and it's $6,000 or shoes or something. And I'm looking through all these things, right? And I turn the page and there's a sweater, an Yves Saint Laurent sweater. And it was $28,000. And I'm looking at this sweater. And here's what I thought. The woman that buys this sweater or is gifted this sweater, she's very wealthy. But the thing is that she might wear this sweater once a year or never or 3 times, right? So I thought, that's really interesting. And no one's going to write angry letters to the New York Times saying, that's insane. Why is a sweater $28,000, right? So I wrote a blog. This was when I had the Audiophiliac blog. And I said, which is a better value, a $28,000 Yves Saint Laurent sweater or a $10,000 audio system? Because the person that buys the $10,000 audio system will use it many times a week, probably, right? But that $28,000 Yves Saint Laurent sweater sits in a drawer, and no one makes a big deal about it. No one says, that's crazy. Why is it $28,000? Is something special about it? Is it handmade? Is it? No one raises an eyebrow about why those things in the New York Times style section, what they cost. But audio, yes. And in mainstream media, anytime there's a very expensive piece of audio, it's always met with outrage. But any other extravagance, cars, planes, boats, whatever, it's cool. The guy that owns 27 Corvettes, he's a cool guy. Oh man, that guy owns 27 Corvettes that he never drives. He just polishes them in his garage. That's fine. The guy with a $10,000 hi-fi, he's insane. I don't know. I don't understand that.
If you accidentally put that sweater in the dryer, it's ruined. So
it's ruined. Yeah,
$10,000 audio system you get to enjoy.
Yeah, well, I feel like people get anxiety about having like buyer's remorse or something, so they feel like they have to defend tooth and nail. But it's not just the purchases. It's like I said, a topic as simple as, do cables really matter? And it becomes this flame war of like, oh, I use lamp cord, and it's like, well, I have $50,000 cables, and they've, I can hear the voice of, my spirit leader, and it,
yeah.
so I don't know.
It's fun. But you know, I stay away from cables, and then every now and then I just do it just to see how it feels and what happens, and it can get pretty weird. I did one recently on power cables, and it wasn't as bad as I expected. And these are audiophiles that watch my shows and stuff, and it can still get pretty intense. But
you know, to your point about the Yves Saint Laurent sweater and a $10,000 audio system,
yeah,
isn't one problem with the audio business? Aren't we our own worst enemy sometimes, in the sense that we have these uber expensive products, and one of the key attributes of the product is the price, meaning you kind of brag or whatever that this is a $30,000 pair of speakers, and you know, I think that might be a problem, and it also means a very narrow band of humanity is going to want it, just like a very narrow band of humanity buys a $28,000 sweater. And one of the things I really like about you, Steve, and your site is that's not what you do. You are more than willing to talk about a $20,000 whatever it is, pair of speakers or amplifier, but you also will review. I mean, one of your best ones I thought was this one where you're talking about, you know, a phenomenal system under. You didn't talk about any of our stuff. A phenomenal system under $1,000. And
well,
I just love
ones that are under $100 actually. Yeah.
That's right. But I loved that. I thought that you know, it's a spectrum of experiences, and they don't always have to be massively expensive, right?
Right. Well, my definition of an audiophile, which no one else has picked up on, by the way, is an audiophile is anyone who listens to music without multitasking, at least some of the time, right? Being an audiophile isn't a measure of the gear that you own. Being an audiophile is basically a state of mind that you care about music enough to record it, as opposed to concerts, recorded music enough that you will actually listen to it. And I say this because when I worked at CNET, when I originally had this idea, I walked around the office one day and I asked people there just randomly, do you ever listen to music without multitasking? Now, mind you that most of the people that work at CNET are under 35 years old. So I walked around CNET and I asked people, and I would say maybe 4 out of 5 not only said no, they were baffled as to why I would even ask the question, right? Like, why would I do that? Of course I would multitask. Why? It just doesn't make any sense. Of course I would do something else. And then I would say to them, but look, if your favorite band worked really hard to make this piece of music that you love, they sweated for weeks, months to perfect this music, and you can't give it 5 minutes of your time. You don't see that that's kind of weird, that you're dissing their music, that their talent, their energies that went into that music? No, not really. There you go. So anybody that can actually do that or would want to do that, right away they've crossed some sort of threshold that they are engaged with recorded music. And once you are engaged with recorded music, what's going to happen next? I don't know. You might want to hear it better. Now, of course, if you're not engaged with recorded music, well, then chances are you don't want to hear it better, and therefore you would never buy a better blah, blah, blah. Unless you want to play it louder or you want to hear more bass. Sorry, I forgot who I was talking to for a second. But in any case, yeah, most people do not care.
I think that's such an interesting way to frame it up because of, you know, I think other people's definition of an audiophile would have certain stigmas attached to it, but I feel like yours is very much in line with, you know, the fun part. You know, it's the fun part. It's not the, you know, how much can you spend or, you know, how I'm smarter than you, anything like that, you know, because I'm an audiophile. And one of the things
just to finish it off, though,
yeah,
is the person with a $10,000 system more of an audiophile than someone with a $1,000 system? Is there gradation? I think a lot of people would say yes. Is it measurable, so to speak? You know, I'm into measurements. Is you more, the more you spend, does that make you a better audiophile?
I mean, are you asking?
No,
I think it's a
rhetorical question. No, I think it has nothing to do with how much your system costs.
It's
how much you enjoy it. Yeah.
I mean, enjoy even. I think your point is that their purpose is to immerse themselves in a convincing and total experience. You know what? And I would say it doesn't have to be music. It could be movie or
Sure.
some other thing where that, personally, I can't even, this is the thing, anyone who hangs with me knows this, I can't listen to music as background music. I find it too sort of almost upsetting. I need to either let it be the focus, or I'd rather just have silence or the TV in the background. And maybe that is a definition right there. That's been true for me my whole life. And it's, I don't know, let me ask you the reverse of that question. Do you ever listen to music as background music, or is it always only the primary focus?
No, I do listen to music as background music, actually. And I'll tell you why. Because I find music as background to be energizing, especially when I'm in a creative mode. The right kind of music pushes those creative buttons. It really does. It has to be the right kind of thing. Usually instrumental, almost never with vocals. Definitely makes me feel something that silence doesn't.
Yeah, and that's funny you mentioned creative there, because in my home office game room here, there's 11 speakers in here, and I have them on my network. And whenever I'm building PowerPoint for the company or working and just trying to zone out, my speaker group is called Creative. And I put that whole thing on, and the entire neighborhood knows when I'm doing something. It's mostly Hans Zimmer, so it's instrumental, like you said.
Yeah.
And I just lock in and get stuff done. And I know exactly what you're saying there.
Well, I like to listen to Wu-Tang Clan when I cook, so there's that. And, just, if you're doing a passive activity, mowing the lawn, like, you gotta have music. So that's kind of where I stand with the background music.
Yeah,
but Steve, I did want to ask you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like one of your missions, and I learned this about you at Axpona 2 years ago, but also from watching some of your videos, is you're really trying to get younger and more diverse people into this hobby. And I'm just curious where that comes from.
And so are we, by the way.
Well, exactly. I think there's a shared energy there between us, but I'm just curious where that comes from and what sort of what's your approach to doing that?
Well, the second part of the question is answered by having a YouTube channel.
Fair enough.
It's, what was that Pepsi commercial? The young generation. I am so happy to be on YouTube and not be writing for print magazines. I mean, my friends write for print magazines, so I'm not putting them down at all. But the thing is, it feels like, 10 years ago, everyone was saying, where are the young audiophiles? Matter of fact, I did a stereophile as we see it, and I posed the question. I said, John Atkinson is 40 years older than he was 40 years ago, and Dan D'Agostino is 40 years older than he was 40 years ago, and I'm 40 years older than I was 40 years ago, and my customers at Sound by Singer are 40 years older. And all these people, so the customers, the designers, the writers, everybody is 40 years older than they were. But where are the people coming behind us? Where are they? I don't see those guys, except Gary, of course. So now on YouTube, I found where they are, and I look around at Andrew Robinson and Sean Fowler and Jay at Next Best Thing. And now I say, oh, there they are. They're right there. And you know what? Andrew Robinson has 190,000 subscribers. Stereophile, at least in their print, has 35,000. And John Darko has 185,000 subscribers. I have 192,000 subscribers. Stereophile has 35,000 subscribers.
You guys are
so they're old and getting older, and I'm getting old and getting older. But at least this end of the audio publishing community is expanding. So that's where it is. That's where the young are.
Well, I think one flaw of the audio industry up until now has been that it's been largely predicated on the fact that they believe most people don't care about great sound. And so you have to target this very narrow swath of people. And
you mean old people?
Well, you want to know? Old, rich men.
Okay.
But we always felt that probably 2/3 to 3/4 of people love great sound, seek it out in places such as movie theaters, live concerts, EDM, those kind of things. But nobody's helping them see that they can have great sound and these kind of immersive, convincing experiences in their own living space. And that's what guys like you are now doing. You're talking to this different, bigger, larger group of people, which we try to do too. And our average age of our customers, the typical speaker company, it's over 55. For us, it's a virtual tie between 25 to 34 and 35 to 44.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, Steve. YouTube has been the single biggest driver of getting people into this hobby over the last 3 to 5 years, and I'd say it's really been the last 2 years where it's taken a stronger foothold, and it's because of people like you and Andrew, and everyone you mentioned, Fowler. Like they're all just contributing to this in different ways with different styles, and the audience is growing. So I think it's important. And somebody mentioned video games are still more popular than audio, but I think video games are now also starting to draw people in as you get those immersive formats.
And they're
truly be enjoyed, with a true home theater system.
Yeah, and they're focusing
I'm
on
not into video games, but I wondered what that what it was that video games weren't using audio in a more audiophile, for lack of a better word, way. I don't understand what the lag was, but
one problem is they want to hear each other. They want to hear each other talking to each other and talk to them, all over the world. And so they've got to have some kind of microphone where they hear a microphone and headphone, so they can hear the talking over the.
You could do that part with headphones and still have sound coming over speakers, right?
Right. That's the secret.
Seems like a doable.
We should do another.
So
I don't want. Steve, if you don't mind hanging with us, normally the guest would be gone by now, but I'm just enjoying the heck out of your insights.
Okay.
Could we do another giveaway now, and then we could do the last giveaway right at the end, right after Steve leaves, and we can maybe take Steve in a different direction, ask him some different questions.
Yeah, like another 10 minutes or so.
That's it. We are punctual.
We always end right at 7. We leave them wanting more. Yeah.
So we'll do just for everyone else. We'll do a double long lightning round for the next happy hour here when we come up in a couple weeks. But for now, let's do a giveaway. We are giving away an SB1000 Pro subwoofer, and the winner of that is Steve Adius. Steve Adius, congratulations! SB1000 Pro coming your way. So Steve, I wanted to ask a question and basically just get your take, because I think people would be interested to know what your favorite format for listening to music is and why.
LP, big surprise. Just because I hate to use the cliche, but I have to because I can't think of another word. Just because it's more engaging. It's more engaging because you have to be engaged. You have to get the record. You have to put it on the turntable. You have to put the stylus in the groove. When I did a thing once with 6 or 7 people who were under 40 years old about their first turntable, and they all talked about that. They weren't nostalgic about playing records. They all said when they played records, they didn't multitask. They said they actually listened to music, and it came as a surprise to them. And I wasn't, leading them into that sort of answer. They all came to that on their own, including a 14-year-old boy. They all said when they listen to records, they don't multitask. They play the whole side of the record. So that's why. It's not that it sounds better, though. I think it does. It's just the way it pulls you into the music more. So that's why.
All right, that makes sense. You have a second favorite? I'm just curious.
Second favorite is CD.
What are your ranks?
CD is second.
Okay, fair enough.
I thought for sure he was going to go Bluetooth MP3.
No, third is streaming.
So I mean, just to understand what you just said, you said you prefer CD over like a high-res streaming.
Yeah.
Do we have time to hear why Steve says that? I'm fascinated by that answer.
Because it's similar, because there's more engagement, because I think about the record, the CD, I go and pull it out, put it on, listen to it. I think it sounds as good or better than high-res streaming.
Yeah,
because I find myself listening to CDs too, because a lot of music that I like is not available on streaming. Like some of the classical music I like, I find I have to.
John Darko, who is Mr. Streaming, I am not. I think he agrees that playing a CD sounds better than high-res streaming. It's not
Yeah,
a
get the
numbers.
liner notes
You
and
know,
all that
audio is
too.
more complicated than numbers. It just is.
Yeah. Larry, do you have a thought?
I was saying, you know, I've got my 200 disc CD changer back there loaded up, and over here on my shelf, I have all my 4K movies, but also another 500, 600 CDs. And I still love pulling them out, loading them, and listening to them, and, you know, kind of going back and reading the liner notes from my 80s and 90s. You know, I'm a Gen X, my wife's Gen Y, and we listen to a lot of that music from that time, but also going back and finding old stuff. And record store day is exciting. So there's all kinds of cool stuff that's trying to bring people back into what music was, as opposed to now it's just throwing something out there digitally. Or I heard
one
Lord.
other thing about vinyl, especially if you are old. You know, I don't know if you've noticed, I'm very old, but if you're very old and you have a record like this that you've owned for over 50 years, well, not this one exactly, but one that's similar, a Ray Charles record. If you have a record that you've owned for 50 years, you might ask the question, what else have you owned that you use? It's not up in the attic in a box, that you use for 50 years. The answer is probably nothing. So the engagement of having a thing that I remember buying the record, going into the store, paying $2.98 for the record, like my Rolling Stones records I bought when I was 15 years old. That is so meaningful to me, so important to me that I play those records. I remember the circumstances of buying those records. Can't get that on a stream. Not even close.
Yeah. One of the
well, my whole wall is covered with vinyl, so it's something that I collect, and it's also part of my movie collections is the soundtracks too.
So one of my
before we lose Steve, I wanted to ask you. You've got the SVS community here. It's probably not as many as yours, but a lot. Maybe 10, 15,000 people will see this at the end. By the end, okay. What should they know that they probably don't know?
The meaning of life. I don't.
No, probably keep it to their shared interest, which is sound and audio.
What should they know that they don't know?
If that's a tough question, just blow it off.
I don't know, man.
Or advice for people who are just getting into the hobby too, like things like, you know, we talked about younger people. Like, what are some things that you know, you might be able to tell folks to get other people to want to be passionate about great sound and high performance audio?
I think the main thing is really to I know it's not easy, but I think the thing is about listening. It's a hard thing if you're not in the habit of doing, but to try to do it at least for a song or two, to just do that thing, not multitask, not read, not talk. Your favorite music, not my favorite music. Take your favorite music, one song, two songs, whatever it takes, and just listen to that and listen to it and listen to whatever it is. Just say focus on, let's say, the rhythm guitar player. Listen to just the kick drum, the snare. Listen to the interaction of the musicians. You are inside the band. How does that song put together? What's making it work so that you feel more involved in the music? Like, what is happening there? So that's what engagement is, you know, and you feel it, you know. It's like when I was a kid and I was listening to some Beatles song and I realized that there was this John Lennon track and his voice was doubled, but they didn't just take his vocal and repeat it twice. He was singing along with himself. So it was slightly different, the second vocal. And when I realized that, I'm getting goosebumps. Really, it would be so easy for them to just take that track and repeat it so it sounded like two vocals. But no, he sang it twice. He was listening to himself on headphones, singing along with himself. It was a great way of making it richer sounding.
I love that answer. And before we let you go and do our last giveaway, I did want to ask if you have any cool projects or anything that you have coming down the pipeline that maybe people should know about. Obviously, follow the Audiophiliac on YouTube, also on Twitter, and I think you're on Instagram as well.
It's really easy. I wanted to leave that it's really easy to find Steve on YouTube. You just search on his name, Guttenberg, or Audiophiliac. It'll come up.
Better to find me as Audiophiliac, but yeah. because there's the actor guy that has my name. But I'm working on being more famous than he is.
You came up when I searched on your name. That was the first time I searched. But anyway.
That's okay. Yeah.
So anything exciting coming down the pipeline we should be ready for? You want to tease anything?
Well, I just want to mention this segment that I'm working on that's not going anywhere, so I'm giving it the last go round. Is, I have this feature called the Audiophiliac Viewer System of the Day, where I had people send me pictures because I do these slideshows of just dozens and dozens of my viewer systems where I talk about each one, right? And I thought, well, I'm going to do one in every video now where I just show one system and talk about it for a minute or so. And I put it at the end of the video, and I thought that's a really good idea, that every video you get to see. I say, I'm going to turn the camera around, and now you guys get to see each other's system, at least one of them. And there's very little reaction, and I'm really surprised and kind of disappointed in my viewers.
Well, I love the endeavor, and you hear that SVS community? Flood Steve's inbox with all
Yes,
SVS
I think that's what he said.
You can be Audiophiliac famous. Steve, we had an awesome time. You are a wealth of knowledge and insight, and we greatly appreciate you joining us today. Maybe down the road we can do it again, and hope to see you at some of these audio shows coming up later this year.
All
Steve,
right.
we've never kept a guest on this long. This is by far the record, and we're very appreciative. This was fun for me, and I know it was for
I'm
our
honored
community.
to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, bye. Well, that was awesome.
fun.
Yeah, that was.
We have
great.
one more giveaway, right?
Before we have one more giveaway, our PB1000 Pro subwoofer, and thank you everybody for sticking around. The winner of the PB1000 Pro is Rob Kingman. Rob, congratulations!
Congratulations!
Happy note. We end our show on a happy note.
We do. So sorry we didn't get the
winning
lightning round, but we're going to have a double extra lightning round on our next broadcast, which will be, it's going to be about a month from now, Thursday, July 22nd at 6 p.m. as we normally do. Hopefully we'll have a special guest. We'll have a lot of fun then. So tune in next Thursday, Thursday, July 26th at 6 p.m. Again, thanks everyone. Thanks Steve for joining us. Follow him on YouTube, and we'll catch up with you guys in about a month.
Thanks everybody.